Wow, it's been an hour of technical difficulties. We could have recorded an entire podcast in the amount of time that it figured out that I'm just back at square one where I started before doing any of this shit.
We made it.
Is it working?
It's working. The
Okay.
sound is working. The video's working. Thank
We
you.
made it. I'm
Thank
in my
you.
own personal Mercury retrograde.
Okay. So, this is our first episode.
Inaugural episode.
Yes. It's our birth. I guess it's like a birth. It's a birthday. Our
It is a
birthday of this podcast. Hello, world. Vibes Revealed is here.
Vibes revealed is wait, how are you about birthdays? I've never been like a big like it's my birth. I'm not that kind of person.
Honestly, love a birth. I do not like, for me personally, like celebrating my birthday is just kind of about like acknowledging that I am alive. And I like to do small things. Like I like to have really intimate. I'm a Scorpio. I love intimacy. So I like really intimate gatherings. I like to like just do a little, maybe like a hotel night with my boyfriend. I also like to like acknowledge my mom.
That's cute.
I think it's like great to celebrate your life, celebrate that you chose to come in, but shout out my mom for birthing me. So that's
Absolutely.
so really here we go. Shout out to us for birthing this
I was about to say,
podcast.
let's celebrate us then. We put this fucking podcast together and let's talk about the birth of the podcast.
Yes.
Let's talk
Okay.
about how the podcast was conceived, which is a more
Ooh,
fun story than the birth story.
for sure. Um yeah, so obviously this podcast was conceived with a lot of love, and I think we both just felt like it was time to bring something into the world, even though podcasts have existed for a while and they are just gaining popularity by the day. I know one of the reasons I really wanted to do it was to have this space outside of Instagram, outside of Facebook, that felt like it could exist off of a social media platform. And I like that we get to talk, like having a conversation instead of just reading things. I know like I read a lot of comments and I like to engage online in a digital space. And even though this is also a digital space, there was something about it that just felt like it could exist outside of that. And
Totally.
that I was like, yes, I'm ready to do that.
I feel like you've wanted to start a podcast for a while, right?
I really have. I love podcasts. They're one of my favorite ways to absorb information, to get to know people. I love listening to people talk, and I love talking. So
Oh,
truly, I
man.
can't think of a better career path for me at this time.
Yeah, it's funny because I've like never really wanted to start a podcast, although I do love hearing myself talk. That cannot be refuted. I was voted most talkative in my high school senior superlatives.
I love that.
So, but I didn't really want to start a podcast. But then we did a live together for the summer solstice. Taylor and I like did a little meditation and a tarot reading, and I literally re-listened to it for the next 5 days. And I was like, even for me, this is bordering on obsessive. And I was like, okay, Taylor and Jay should probably do something where like I can listen to them. I'm speaking about us in the third person for this. I just want to be able to like listen to Taylor and Jay have conversations regularly and not like find myself in mid-December still going back and listening to our live from September. So, although I didn't want to start a podcast, I'm very excited that we're doing this now. And I feel like you said, conversations, I feel like we're both in a space where to our following, to our clients, we're doing a lot of teaching and guiding. And it's not necessarily a conversation that bounces back and forth. It's a lot of giving of information. And I like to come into this space and have the reciprocation and the bounce back. It's nice.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely feel that way. And I feel like on social media, when we're just typing, a lot of times you can misinterpret someone's tone, or, and I like, yeah, I don't know. I just, I, we were having a lot of conversations. We started Zooming a lot in quarantine.
Court.
And yeah, when quarantine began, we were just really like vibing. I felt like we were having these amazing conversations that were just fully expanding my mind and making me feel really excited and giving me a lot of peace and a lot of hope, and also just a lot of like comfort to have a friend who was on a similar path that I was, and I felt like we were learning together and we were still teaching and we were really in this space of exploration. And that's definitely what I hope for this podcast, is that we just continue to explore and that we get to chat with some experts, and that we also get to chat with people who are not experts but who are having their own experience, and that we get to just bring all of those experiences out into a bigger space.
Totally. The world of wellness. The
Yeah.
world of wellness is the world that we will live in for this podcast. And I feel like how do I say this? A bigger space is what we need to make because the wellness world is somehow it got too small, and it got small very fast, and a lot of doors were shut. And I think our intention for this podcast is to open up those doors, to open up the space and allow this to be a more inclusive space where we all feel like we know and understand what wellness is, and we all feel like we have the right to be on the path towards wellness, because it seemed like there were some iron gates up on
Yeah.
a lot of roadblocks on the way to wellness, just in terms of socioeconomic accessibility. And honestly, just like to me, it felt like wellness was becoming trendy, like a trend, like a cool person's table at in high school. And you're like, no, you can't sit here, like you don't know what these words mean.
Yeah.
And that was bothering me.
Yeah.
So that's just like we couldn't have that. So we had to do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So last thing that I'm so excited about this podcast is just because Taylor and I both have, well, I should talk to you. Last thing that I was just really excited about starting this podcast with you was that we just have such a distinct path that we're on in terms of like our technical work. So obviously I come to you a lot for guidance from astrology, guidance from tarot. That's not necessarily my like the direct work that I'm doing. So I feel like bringing in those elements of intuitive healing and intuitive wellness and that side of the wellness world, and then I think I'm still spiritual in my practices, but I'm a little more steeped in food and fitness and body healing, and having that spiritual healing be a means to creating bodily healing. So it's wellness from a lot of different angles, and I think us coming together and having these conversations is gonna just in and of itself open up so many doors, because we're just taking on two very separate perspectives. So um, I guess that
Yes.
is a good segue for us to just introduce ourselves and actually tell you about what we do.
So let's rewind a little bit and let all of our new friends here.
Oh, I guess we should let
And
them know who we are.
yeah, let's let them know who we are. Let's introduce ourselves here
Yes,
to our new listeners.
absolutely. That would be a very smart thing to do. I'm glad we both have very distinctive voices, so there's no confusing us. But I guess I'll go first.
Yes, please.
My name is Jay. My pronouns are she, her. I was born and raised in Orange County. I'm actually still here living out this quarantine life in the house that I grew up in the bedroom that I grew up in. So it's been kind of surreal. But in my work, I am a holistic health coach. So I focus on all mind, body, spirit elements of healing, healing the soul, healing the self. And I mean, I do everything with my clients from meditation to fitness to cooking classes and learning about nutrition. And I think the door to wellness opened up for me through the lens of food, through the kitchen, is where I really came into my wellness story. So I think a lot of my work is through the healing power of cooking, through the creative power of cooking, of eating well, and it kind of trickles out into more spiritual practices, mindset practices, all of that. But I think I'll throw this in for Taylor because this moves into her realm. I am an Aries sun, a Capricorn moon, and a Libra rising for anyone that touches. But yeah, that's a little about me. Like we keep we keep coming back to this idea, like how are we supposed to introduce ourselves? I think that ourselves will introduce themselves throughout this podcast, and you'll learn more about who we are. And it's really hard to put yourself into a nutshell like this, but there was my
Totally.
3 minute spiel.
Yes. Love. I love that you said that, that I definitely do. I think that we will continue to reveal ourselves and who we are and what we do. But to give you a little taste, I'm Taylor. She, her pronouns. I am a Scorpio sun, Scorpio moon, Aquarius rising, and I am an intuitive tarot reader. I am a baby astrologer, definitely still very much a student forever. I think that learning is a huge part of who I am and what I love to do. I love to be in a state of gathering information and learning as much as I can, so I will always be that for sure. I live in Los Angeles. I'm in my apartment here. I yeah, I'm a person, a human, and I'm just so excited to be doing this. I my wellness journey. I yeah, it's like so hard to even like talk about where it began or how it started, but um spiritual practices now are like a huge part of my life, and tarot, communication with my guides and my higher self, and knowing what's up astrologically is all a big part of my life. And yeah, but
Yay!
yeah, I'm so excited to be doing this. It feels amazing. Should we talk about how we met, how we know
Yes.
each other? Yeah.
I love this.
Me
I love
too.
the story.
This is like a story I might not be able to pinpoint the start of my wellness journey, but we can definitely tell you how we met.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I love it because it's sometimes people just come into your life at the right time and when you need
Yes.
them most. Definitely, I feel like it's a reciprocated, both of us kind of. You came into my life at the right time, and then I showed back up on the scene just when you
Oh
needed
my
me.
gosh.
But
Truly.
I first met Taylor when I was literally, I call them the dark ages of my life because I was so depressed, and it was just like, it was it was like a disaster movie. My life was like anything that could go wrong did go wrong, and it just continued to go. And like a couple years in, people were like, so has someone been playing pranks on you, or like what's going on, Jay? Like things are just not looking good. People were like reaching out to me like on the internet being like, are you okay? I was just like,
Oh.
no, I'm not. So I think right around the time um when Taylor and I met, I had just recently returned to LA after trying to run away from my problems and live in Thailand for 3 months, and like it worked, but then I like had to return to real life. And I came back to LA. I was super depressed. I was working I think I was working 2 jobs. So I worked for a yoga clothing brand, and then I also was working doing like e-commerce and social media, and it was just not good. And um, I was super depressed. And then I got laid off from the e-commerce job, and I was doing social media and working for Aloe. And Taylor was the studio manager at the Aloe store at the Grove. And as soon as I got laid off from that other job, I realized I could start going to yoga classes like in the middle of the day.
Yes.
And because I was in such a deep state of depression, I went to yoga class like 3 times a day in that time. And it became like the only place in LA that I could like find peace and solace for like an hour on my mat. And being the studio manager, Taylor was literally like the one who opened the doors to me. So every time it became one of those associations where like I knew I was walking in the room to feel good, and Taylor's smiling face was like the first thing that I saw when I entered that situation. So it was just like no matter where I was going to see Taylor's face, it was going to be associated with me like having a release, feeling free, feeling at home, safe, and at peace. So that's kind of when I started seeing Taylor like every day, like 3 times a day, sometimes mainly 2 times a day. And we would just be so excited to see each other. We'd have nice conversations after class. I'd like hang out with her while she cleaned the mats after class. And then I left. I left to go run away from my problems again, actually, but this time to take care of my niece. And then I feel like when I returned, Taylor was in the same place I was in the year
Oh,
before.
1,000%. It was like, well, and this whole thing had happened where I saw you every single day, and then all of a sudden, I just did not see you again.
Yeah, I
And
left.
I
I
was
left the
like,
state.
yeah, I was like, I wonder where Jay is. Like, where did she go? But I I don't know what kept me from reaching out. And then I a couple months went by that you had been gone, and I started noticing you like posting Goodreads reviews on Facebook and these book reviews and just sharing a little bit more and more and more. And I like missed you so much. It really hit me that I was like, oh my gosh, like I really miss Jay. And then one day you walked up the stairs again, and I literally cried. Like, I hadn't seen you in months. I saw you come up and I was like, oh my God. And because I was in that place that you were in, just feeling so lost and feeling like I wanted to run away. And I felt so discouraged by the whole wellness scene. And I remember saying that to you. And
I
I
remember your
remember,
face.
yeah, I remember you looking at me, and I knew you knew that I was there, that I was like,
I was like, "Oh, are we okay?" No.
no, no, not okay. Definitely not okay. And yeah, then quarantine.
Yeah,
That
honestly. So
that
so I mean, I think that's like it was a really good reminder for me, and I think me leaving must have been a good reminder for you how easy is for us, especially as adults, especially as people who don't go to school, who don't work like corporate jobs in like big places with like thousands of people where you meet new people every day. It's very much like, am I ever going to meet someone new again? Am I ever going to make a friend again? And you start to rest on the laurels of like the I don't want like the free associations. When I say free, I mean like it's like I'm so lucky that Taylor worked at the yoga studio that I went to. But I just was like, I get to see Taylor every day because I go to yoga studio instead of being like, Taylor, how about we be friends outside of the yoga studio,
yeah.
you know? And then as
Yeah.
soon as I left, it was like, oh shit, well, I love Taylor. And now I haven't seen her and talked to her in 3 months. And what if I never go back to the yoga studio? What are we going to do? Like, we have to take matters into our own hands. And then as soon as
And we
quarantine,
did.
I know that we can't really go do yoga anymore, but like we should get on Zoom. And then we did. And then we did again.
Yeah.
Did again.
Yeah. And now
And then we
I
were
can
like, let's record ourselves.
yes, literally. I cannot imagine now. It's so funny. That's what you like going back to that we will reveal ourselves, and I think it's wild to think about like 6 months ago. I We didn't talk like this every day, and now I
Yeah.
cannot imagine not talking to you all the time. And I'm
No.
sure all of you soon will not be able to imagine what it was like before this podcast.
What was it like before Jay and Taylor talked to me for hours on end once a week?
Yeah. Yeah, it's been good. It's been good for me. So I hope it's as good for everyone else who listens to this.
Okay, so that's how we met. That's
That's
a
how
little
we
bit
met. Something we want to do as part of this podcast really regularly. So this is going to become one of our usual segments. We'll probably have it closer to the top at the next show, but we want to do a card of the convo to set the tone and give us something to refer back to. And yeah, just kind of, see what vibe is, what energy is surrounding us as we have this talk. So I will be pulling a tarot card at the top of the episode.
Okay, well, here's a lovely thing about being on a podcast with two people instead of just yourself. Nobody's going to praise themselves, but I can praise Taylor and say Taylor is actually my card reader and has been giving me guidance since we started talking during quarantine. And I just love Taylor's interpretation of the deck and the gentle relationship that she has with the deck. And I think we just felt like, especially conversations with friends, they can go off on tangents, they could go out in weird directions. And I feel like getting this guidance in the beginning of the conversation will allow us to continually come home to the energy of whatever it is that we're bringing up here. And I think in the intro it will be a little different, but moving forward there's definitely the need for grounding when we start unpacking these spiritual topics, and this when we start unpacking like the wellness world in general, because like we said, it's super convoluted sometimes, and it's really exclusive sometimes and just not accessible. And I think having this card of the convo to come back to and remember why we're here is so important.
For anyone who's curious, the deck I'm going to be using for this card of the convo is the Neo Tarot by Jericho Mandiburer. I'll put that in the show notes. We'll put that in the show notes. So if you want to see what this deck is all about for yourself. Okay.
I'm excited.
Me too. Okay. I love this actually. It's Ace of Swords reversed.
Ooh.
Yeah. Um I feel like an ace is so appropriate since this is our first episode. It's sort of the introduction. It's definitely something new. It's this like invitation into the mind.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
aces for me are always an invitation, and I feel like this is sort of the invitation into our internal dialogue, right? this
Totally.
this reversal, it's internal, it's what's happening within us. And I love that as sort of setting the tone for this conversation and something that we can refer back to. And I think something that's really big with swords is also like honesty.
Mm-hmm.
It's like an invitation into your most radical honesty that truly comes from inside of you.
I like that.
Yeah.
I totally got this feeling of just like honestly revelation.
Reveal, yes,
Like
absolutely.
the word reveal came up when you pulled Ace of Swords reversed. I was like, there's something about using intellect to reveal the truth. And I think that's what we're doing here. So I feel like there just could not have been a better card. And honestly, with it reversed, instead of using intellect as like as a sword of defense,
Mm-hmm.
it's more like using it to open up a door, like using the sword as like a key instead of like a
Yes,
weapon.
absolutely.
Yeah, that's what I felt. I like that card.
Yeah, yeah. I love that. I think that's beautiful for what we're doing here today.
Me too.
Yeah. Um. So speaking of revelations and getting to the truth, and also just sharing sharing our honest experiences from the inside out. Something that we both feel super strongly about and definitely want to explore in depth on this podcast is the language. Oh, and swords are so I feel like swords are so language. It's
Yeah.
talking, it's communication always. And we really wanted to talk about a lot of the terms that you hear in wellness, that you might hear in yoga classes, or that you hear in meditations, even that you hear in therapy sessions, that have become these sort of like catchphrases or buzzwords or, just terms that we hear over and over again that we kind of start to lose track of what they mean. And sometimes we never even knew what they meant in the first place, but we've become so used to hearing them that they're just like part of the vocab now.
Or I feel like it's like almost like you need to have like, a graduate degree just to understand what the hell is going
Yes.
on in the wellness world, because they use so many words that it's like, did I need to go to law school to like, is there a this or
Yeah.
a glossary here that we can use? Or it's
Yeah.
frustrating actually, because I think that's
Completely.
a huge barrier.
Absolutely. Yeah. There is this sort of like the constant back and forth, I think, in wellness of people wanting proof of that some of these spiritual practices are real and then trying to find words to give them weight. And it's like I totally believe it's important to have experts. It's totally important to have scientific reason. Those things are hugely important, but I also think that sometimes these practices can get complicated and start to feel like you can't do them and you don't know where to start.
Mhm. Mhm.
So
Absolutely.
we're going to list off some of these words, phrases, things that we want to dive into on this podcast. And these are topics that we fully plan to cover, dive into our own experiences with them. We hope to have guests on to talk about their experience with them. And yeah, should we just we're just
I
going
feel like
to
I feel like we should bounce off, because
yeah,
whatever
let's do
you
it.
say, see what it inspires in me, and then vice versa, until we just go down a huge rabbit hole.
Okay. Cool. Go. Yeah.
Me first.
Yeah, go first.
Okay. Collective energy.
Oh, yes. Does this serve me?
Shadow work. That needs to be, shadow work is next.
Yeah, safe space,
Embodiment.
holding space,
Trauma bonds.
energetics,
Honestly, vibration.
vibration, yes. Oh, manifestation.
Oh my god, yes. That needs to go at the top of the list.
Yeah.
Definitely. Higher self.
Spirit guides.
Calling in. I feel like a huge one is like spirit guides versus ancestors
Yeah.
versus
All of that, like spirit guides, ancestors,
total.
angels, higher self, talking about interdimensionality,
Yeah. The 3D,
consciousness.
5D consciousness, hugely a mystery to many of us. Talking about the ego and
Yes.
separating it from the more scientific perspectives. Like we all understand ego from like very separate spaces. So bringing that like into spirituality.
Yeah,
Spirituality, I guess, is a buzzword.
totally.
Love and light.
And spiritual bypassing.
Oh my God. Yes. Yes. I feel like there's so much. I feel like that's a good list.
So those are some of the things we really want to cover in this podcast.
And I feel like if you heard any single one of them and were like, what the F does that mean? I feel like that's actually very heartening for me, because
Totally.
like even the first thing that I said, collective energy, I often wonder why we don't just say for everyone. We're like, oh, we're doing this for the collective. And I'm like, you mean we're doing it for everyone? Like, what if you don't know what the collective is? It sounds like some
Yeah.
a weird like co-op or like a
Yeah,
cult.
like a
And then
club.
people are like, what is the collective? And I'm like, it's okay, you're part of the collective. So just like something as simple as that, like sometimes we have to just words are so important, I think, is at the bottom of this. Words are so important. And if you think even about society, like literacy is such a barrier between what you're able to do in the world. If you can't read or write, then how are you supposed to advance socioeconomically, socially? So even just thinking about when we're trying to create an inclusive world of wellness, we need to also create a lexicon that everybody understands, that is accessible to everyone. And I think this is a call from me and Taylor to our friends, our colleagues, whatever you want to call them, the people that we know who are working in this wellness space and continuing to create an air of exclusivity around the work that they do through use of language that is inaccessible. Just reminding everyone, if you're going to use the terms, do your best to define them often, because hopefully we're opening doors up every day for people to who are new to spirituality, who are new to inner work, let's call it. You don't want to immediately feel like you've stepped into a calculus class the first day that you decide that it's time to learn math, you know?
Yeah.
So I feel
Yeah.
like that's what we're
It's
doing with
also
these words.
it it's a continued reminder to ourselves to keep coming back to these words and terms and keep coming back to our own associations with them and making sure that when we're speaking to these things, we're really taking them seriously and we are continuing to explore what they mean and how they change. Because they definitely, they will change. And I think that there's no need to limit ourselves to a certain way to talk about all of these words and to talk about living well and loving, because I think that you said that before. I think that that's really what's so at the core of all of this type of work, is just like, how do we love each other, how do we love ourselves? And it definitely seems like there's a bit of a glossary or a dictionary that we have now to do
Mm-hmm.
that, and we just want to make sure that everybody feels like any of these words can make sense and any of these things are for them, they are for everyone. And I think the more we can put different experience to them and talk about our own experiences with them, just the more open the definitions can be.
Yes, I love it.
Yeah.
Open
Yeah.
definitions. Yes.
So that's really what we are super excited to do here with this podcast.
Yeah, I just think
Yeah.
there's just this like it's in the name, reveal, reveal,
Yeah.
reveal. And I was in actually a program called Reveal to Heal. It was about unpacking racism, but I love the idea of
Yeah.
revealing to heal. It's just reveal the truth behind the words, and I think even
Mhm.
like if you think about like lawyers, and a lot of the work that they do is to hide really intense things behind dense language that people don't understand. Like that's
Absolutely.
contract.
Yeah.
And we're in this social contract stuck behind all this dense language. So we're here to be, you know, the people who are like, let us explain this to you. Let us go over this contract, this social contract that we have with spirituality and the wellness world. And like, let's just like make it accessible to you. So I feel like that's kind of what we're trying to do. What's the vibe? This is
What's the vibe?
this is gonna be fun because what's the vibe is gonna be the final segment of the show. This is where we come and just talk about what's going on with us this week. The vibe is what is vibrating with our current frequency.
Yes, I love that. Definitely. So we're going to talk about things we've read or experienced or consumed that just felt really vibrationally aligned to to
Buzzword.
yeah, to get you with a big buzzword. Yeah, so we're just going to talk about what our vibe is this week. And really, I think part of why we went with vibes, and we're gonna talk about this in another episode, but we figured like vibe is kind of the thing that like everybody can feel.
Right. Everybody knows what a vibe is. Basically, I mean, it's like a high culture, low culture, cross culture word. It's a cross
Yeah,
culture
for
word.
sure.
We rap
Yeah,
about it, we talk about it in meditations, we talk about it in, you know, middle school classes. It's like it is just accessible.
vibes are everywhere, so we want to wrap every episode just letting you know what we're vibing. So
I guess we'll ask Taylor, what's
yeah,
the vibe this week?
my vibe this week is therapy. So I I recently signed up for therapy for, and I've never had like I've gone to counselors after traumatic events in my life, um, but I've never consistently had a therapist or had, yeah, just really consistent guidance or someone that I speak to even weekly, like a third party person. Um, yeah, I was finding myself, and I think that it has taken me this entire year to really come to a place where I was like, I think I just need to do this for my well-being, because I have days where I start to super spin on one thing or one area of my life, and it completely I completely hold myself back from doing anything else because I get into this like guilt and shame spiral about not doing enough, and
Yeah.
then I don't do anything.
Yeah.
Uh, and that has been a pattern for long enough now that I was like, aside from my meditation and breath work and tarot and astrology and Reiki and all of those practices that I really regularly have in my life, I was like, I think it would really benefit me to work with a therapist
Mm-hmm.
that's not necessarily a spiritual person or a spiritual advisor, but that is a doctor and who is trained to be of assistance in that way. So that's my vibe. I have my first session tomorrow, and I am really looking forward to hopefully get out of my own way with that help.
Love that. First of all, I'm just
Yeah,
proud of you for sharing that.
thanks.
And I also want to say, I feel like that is so, so aligned with the card of the conversation.
Totally.
Much of therapy is getting down to the bottom of things with words and hearing your own words reflected back to you from an objective third party and being like, oh, that's what I said. Oh,
Yeah.
and being able to look at yourself in a different way. And I'm really proud of you for that. And also, therapy is so taboo. And I think it really is time for us to start pulling back the veil on mental health and the
Yeah.
stigma around mental health, and not feeling ashamed to say, yes, I'm seeing a therapist. We live in LA, so like it's a little bit different for us because everyone and their moms is seeing a therapist, but in a lot of places it's not even comfortable to admit that you are planning on seeing a therapist, and recognizing that there's something blocking your way to mental wellness. So I love that you said that, and I hope that's what we continue to do on this podcast.
Yeah, I felt like I rely really heavily on my spiritual practices, and not that that's not enough, but I just was like, I've thought about this enough. I've thought about it so much over the course of 2020, and there are all these other ways that I'm willing to invest in myself, and why not?
Mm.
Why not this? Why not try this? So I'll keep you posted on my therapy journey, but I'm really glad I took that step. So
I'm glad you did too.
thanks. But what's your vibe, Jay?
My vibe, it's a book, and I'm just starting reading it, and it's the book that I need. It is called Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. Have you
I
heard of
have
it?
that on my list. I just put it on my like to read list this week.
Absolutely. Okay, let me read the tagline of the book
Yes.
is Indigenous Wisdom, Scientific Knowledge, and the Teaching of Plants. And she is an indigenous woman, a teacher, um, who put together basically stories of the first people, of our native people here in America. And the reason I picked it up is because a couple weeks ago, I had a head on collision with the reality of capitalism. And I got super depressed. Just like, it was almost as if I woke up out of a 30-year slumber and was just suddenly made aware of the fact that we are just all living on stolen land. And I was like, how do I not know the stories of the original people of this country? Why did history class start when Columbus landed here in 1492 or whenever? I don't even commit the date to remembering a front. It's just personally rude to even utter the name in any type of positive situation. But yeah, it became very clear to me that we are living on stolen land. I've been studying capitalism very intensely because I'm putting together my internal and personal anti-capitalism manifesto. And my thought process was, I'm not going to go read a bunch of books that are anti-capitalist. I'm going to read a bunch of books that are pro-capitalism and find all the arguments as to why it's not working for me, which it's been going great, mainly because nobody in any of these books seems to even want to mention the idea that we stole all of this initial capital, this land from the native people in the first place. And then also all of these books brush over slavery in like one paragraph to three sentences. Honestly, it's
Oh.
it's really glossed over. So I'm like, ooh, this doesn't align. So I found braiding sweetgrass from listening to a podcast, and I'm not even sure which one it was, but I was so happy that I found this book because it is telling stories of the ancestors of this country and weaving them into plants, which is my life. Like I literally like my life is cooking vegan food, eating vegan food, encouraging people to like live in harmony with their food and with plants. So it's been, I'm not even a quarter of the way in. I've been reading it for 2 hours and it is so good. I
Oh,
love it so much. There was one thing that I wrote down. I mean, there were many things that I highlighted, but one of the questions that she asked was, how do you respond to the generosity of the earth? And just
wow.
to think that um, food growing from the earth is a gift to us. And it's something that doesn't expect anything in return. And we're currently not giving it anything in return. And as a result, the earth is dying because it's just giving and giving and giving. And we have an unreciprocated love for it.
Yeah.
Earth has an unrequited love for the humans that live on it. And that is sad.
Yeah.
So I think this book is bringing that awareness into me. It was already in me, but it's bringing it alive in me, and it's bringing it alive in the way that I relate to my food, to my own backyard. I'm growing food and I'm like praying over my plants every day, and
Yes.
yeah, it's changing. I can tell that by the end of it I'm going to be like, whoa, I'm a changed woman. I'm already a changed woman. It's only been a few pages, but that's what's on the list for me.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that. I can't wait to read it.
It's so good.
Oh, great. We would love if you left us a 5-star review. It would truly mean the world to us. And if you do, leave us a 5-star review and you can either send us a DM or an email just letting us know that you did it. And we will in turn send you a very special offering that we have co-created in love that harmonizes each of our gifts. And yeah, do you want to tell them what it is, Jay?
Yes, I do, because we're so excited about it. So, based on the card of the combo, so today it was Ace of Swords reversed, we will be creating a special card that goes a little more in depth into the Ace of Swords reversed and how you can bring that energy into your week, how you can kind of harness the energy of the card, and in addition to that, also how you can bring that energy of the card into a recipe. Sometimes it will be like a home remedy recipe or it will be a food recipe, but something that takes inspiration from the card of the week and embodies it in physical form that can then nourish your life, nourish your body, nourish your health in really healing ways.
Yes. So leave us that 5-star review so you can get our super special PDF
It's so
card
fun.
card recipe creation combo.
We'll figure out a cute name for it.
Yeah, we will. I mean, if you have a cute name, you want to shout it out, let us know. Uh,
Absolutely.
and like I mentioned before, you can DM us. We are on Instagram and Twitter at Vibes Revealed. And you can always send us an email, vibesrevealedpodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah, if there's any wellness buzzwords that you have questions about or things that you want further explained, we are at your service and we are here to pull back the veil. So, any questions, no questions are dumb questions, come to us for anything and everything.
Yes, please. And if you just want to chat,
Yeah,
you know
you
we're
know
always
we
down to
love
chat.
talking.
Yeah. Yeah, so we will put all of our contact info in the show notes. Please reach out to us with anything at all. If you are an expert, if you are not an expert, if you are just a person who wants to connect, let us know.
Yes. We're so
Yeah.
excited. Thanks for
We
tuning in to the inaugural episode of Vibes Revealed. Baby
Yes.
vibes.
Baby vibes. It's our baby today. Yay. Okay. So,
Yay.
I guess that's it. I guess that's our show.
That's our show. Okay, so I guess we'll put some stuff in the show notes.
Yes, we will. So we'll put our card of the convo. We will put some other stuff we talked about. We'll put our vibe. We'll put what our vibe is in the show notes, and we'll talk to you all soon. Sending so much love to everyone.
Love and light. Bye.
Bye.